Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack the most impactful ideas and bring you the core insights, helping you navigate the world with greater clarity and confidence. Today, we're tackling a topic that, well, it touches everyone, money. Specifically, how to move from financial stress and confusion to true freedom and control.
That's a journey so many of us are on, isn't it? Whether you're wrestling with persistent debt or maybe just feeling a bit lost about how to genuinely get ahead.
Yeah, that constant worry about bills, the feeling of just treading water financially, it's a really common experience, sadly.
Way too common.
And that's precisely why we're doing this deep dive into a source that has charted a clear course for millions, the Total Money Makeover. So, our mission for you today is pretty straightforward. We want to extract the foundational philosophy, expose some of those deeply ingrained money myths that often keep us stuck, and then lay out a step-by-step, really actionable plan for achieving genuine financial fitness. You should walk away with some surprising insights, definitely practical tools, and importantly, an understanding of not just what to do, but also why it works. It's all about empowering you with real confidence over your finances.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset, taking control and ultimately transforming your relationship with money, moving it from anxiety to, purpose and power.
Okay, so let's get into it. Our journey into the Total Money Makeover doesn't kick off with complex financial charts or dense academic theories.
No, not at all.
Instead, it starts with a deeply personal, almost incredibly raw story from the author himself. It really grounds the whole philosophy in lived experience.
Absolutely. The author's own financial collapse is, it's really the origin story for this entire approach. He's very open about it. Shares that by the time he was 26, despite having built this real estate empire worth over $4 million, he went completely broke.
Oh, $4 million down to zero. Yeah.
Lost everything. Because you see, he built that whole empire entirely on debt. And when the market shifted, it all just came crashing down. He vividly describes this really painful education as his PhD in DUMB, a profound lesson in what not to do.
A millionaire at 26, then bam, losing it all. Facing lawsuits, foreclosures, bankruptcy, all while having a new baby and a toddler at home. That sounds like an almost unimaginable level of financial hardship.
It really does. A true crucible.
But it sounds like from that really intense personal pain came this very clear calling, not just to figure out debt and money for himself, but to actually show other people a path forward, offering hope and practical tools for financial freedom.
Precisely. And that calling started incredibly humbly, just small speaking engagements, a self-published book he called Financial Peace. But what started as this tiny local spark, it just ignited. It grew into a national movement. That local radio show expanded to over 450 stations, reaching millions every week. And the 13-week class, Financial Peace University, has now served over 1 million families. So the Total Money Makeover really stands as a culmination of that whole journey, born from personal struggle, validated through the lives of countless others.
One of the things that immediately struck me about this source is how it sets expectations right from the get-go. It's very clear about what this plan is not.
Yeah, that's important.
What does the author say listeners won't find in this approach? And why is that actually a key point?
It's a crucial differentiator, really. He states very explicitly that this plan is not sophisticated or complicated. You're not going to find academic jargon, complex theories on investing or intricate estate planning strategies here. He deliberately steers clear of all that.
And why is avoiding that complexity considered a strength? I mean, many people assume financial savvy requires all that intricate knowledge, right?
That's a great question. And it directly challenges what he calls a common, arrogant notion. This idea that simple concepts are somehow only for little people. The author argues that some of the most profound, truly life-changing financial truths are, in fact, remarkably straightforward. Just common sense. He says he's met thousands of millionaires, and almost universally, they keep their financial philosophies incredibly simple and clean.
Simple and clean. I like that.
Yeah. It directly counters that idea that financial profundity has to equal complexity. So if you're coming here expecting some kind of mind-bending financial acrobatics, this isn't it. This plan is about common sense laid bare.
That's a really powerful reframing. And speaking of core principles, this deep dive emphasizes a fundamental truth about financial success that might surprise you, especially if you're used to traditional financial advice that focuses just on the numbers.
This might be the most critical insight in the entire source, honestly. Winning with money. It's 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge.
80% behavior.
Think about that for a second. It's not about being a math whiz or a financial guru. It's about disciplined actions. consistent habits. You could have all the financial knowledge in the world, right? But if your behavior doesn't line up with that knowledge, you're just going to perpetually struggle.
Okay, so if behavior is key, what does the author identify as the single biggest obstacle? The thing stopping people from actually doing a total money makeover. He calls it the man in the mirror problem.
That's denial. Plain and simple.
Huh?
People often financially strike a pose, as he puts it. They avoid truly confronting their real financial situation. It's a powerful analogy he uses. Unlike physical weight, where, your belt line getting tighter is undeniable.
Right. Can't hide that for long.
Exactly. Financial fatness, though, that could be faked for a surprisingly long time. You can project this image of success while behind the scenes you're drowning in debt. And often, friends and family completely unknowingly participate in keeping that illusion going.
So for many, the wake-up call only comes after what he calls a financial heart attack.
Yeah, like a sudden layoff, a major health crisis, some unexpected disaster that just knocks the denial out of them.
That sounds like a terrifying way to wake up. But it also implies something interesting. If life isn't currently smacking you around, you might actually be in more danger because you're less compelled to face the truth.
Precisely. That's the real danger for those who are maybe feeling apathetic just fine. They become prime candidates for financial mediocrity, or worse, a future crisis. They just don't feel that urgent need to make the drastic changes required to get different results. And the reality is, change, just by its nature, is painful. Most people won't initiate change until, as he says, the pain of where they are exceeds the pain of change.
That's a powerful quote.
It is. He uses this striking, maybe a bit blunt analogy of a toddler in a soiled diaper. I know it smells bad, but it's warm and it's mine. Only when the rash comes, he says, will they finally cry out for change.
Oof.
So the underlying call to action here is really stark. Choose the pain of change before the pain of not changing forces the issue on you, probably in a much more painful way.
Okay, so if that's the fundamental truth, behavior over knowledge and denial is the biggest hurdle, what are the more practical obstacles people face when trying to start and finish this makeover? The first one the source points to is ignorance. And he's quick to clarify this isn't about intelligence, right?
Correct. Ignorance in this context is simply not knowing. It's a lack of know-how. It's definitely not a judgment on anyone's intellect. The reality is nobody's born financially savvy, and financial literacy, unfortunately, just isn't routinely taught in schools.
Sure.
So overcoming this hurdle requires a bit of humility, admitting you lack expertise without feeling ashamed about it. Then it's about committing to what he calls a lifetime quest to learn more about money, maybe reading one money-related book a year, attending a seminar. He draws this compelling comparison to building a great marriage. It doesn't just happen passively. It demands work, priority, and a consistent pursuit of knowledge.
That makes total sense. Knowing you need to learn is always the first step, isn't it? All right, the second major hurdle is one we can probably all feel pretty acutely. Keeping up with the Joneses. That's societal peer pressure.
Oh, yeah. This is powerfully described as radical change in the quest for approval. It's that insidious trap, isn't it? Buying things you can't genuinely afford with money you don't actually have, all to impress people you might not even genuinely like.
Been there.
Haven't we all? The source shares this really poignant anecdote about Sarah. She had a master's degree in sociology, so intellectually, she totally understood family dynamics. But when she made the earth-shattering decision one Thanksgiving to change her family's long-standing Christmas gift-giving traditions because they were struggling financially, she immediately felt the sting, losing family approval. The emotional reality of that peer pressure was incredibly difficult, even with her intellectual understanding.
That's a truly relatable struggle. That internal battle to go against the grain, even for something that seems small, like gift traditions, can feel immense. The author also shares his own very personal experience with this. A relentless obsession with a Jaguar car.
Right, the Jaguar story.
Even while going broke, he felt he needed it for approval, for respect. He kept refinancing it, even had a friend co-sign a loan just to keep this image up. And the humiliation was stark. He describes the electric company cutting off his power while this luxury car is sitting in the driveway burning oil, leaving a smoke screen because he couldn't afford a $1,700 repair.
It's such a potent illustration of the core lesson he drives home. If you are willing to live like no one else for a season, meaning you make significant sacrifices, you go against those prevailing norms, then you can later live like no one else. You can experience true financial freedom.
Live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else.
Exactly. And this requires cultivating what the author calls the never again mentality.
That deep, almost visceral vow, it seems critical, especially for people who faced significant financial pain before. It's about being so utterly fed up with past stupid decisions and lack of preparation that you just commit with everything you have to a fundamentally different path. It becomes this powerful, unshakable motivator to break those destructive cycles.
Absolutely. So with that foundation of mindset and motivation laid, let's transition into what the source calls myth busting. This is where we really confront and dismantle those deep-seated debt myths that permeate our culture and honestly keep so many people trapped.
Right. And the central deception, the really big one, is that prevailing idea that debt is a tool. The source argues so vehemently against this myth, which often suggests debt is like a fulcrum and lever that lets people acquire things they otherwise couldn't: homes, cars, businesses.
And this myth, the author notes, is often perpetuated by what he terms academic snobbery. Promoting the idea that only sophisticated and disciplined financiers use debt to their advantage. No. But the truth, he contends, the hard truth, is that debt consistently introduces considerable risk. It often doesn't lead to true prosperity, and it's just not used by truly wealthy individuals nearly as much as we're led to believe. He firmly states that given enough time, risk will almost certainly destroy the perceived returns you thought you'd get from leverage.
And he speaks from personal experience here too, right? He admits he used to be a myth-sayer himself.
Oh, yeah. He even sold losing rental properties by showing investors these very sophisticated internal rates of return on how they'd supposedly make money. It was only after his own bankruptcy, waking up in intensive care, financially speaking, that he truly grasped how fundamentally flawed and dangerous that whole myth is.
Wow. That kind of wake-up call really changes your perspective.
It does. And it leads to this powerful ancient truth that really underpins his entire philosophy. The borrower is slave to the lender. It's from Proverbs 22.7. It's just an incredibly direct, unvarnished view on the true nature of debt.
Okay, so with that as our guiding principle, borrower is slave to the lender, let's systematically debunk some of the most common debt myths that keep tripping people up. First, that incredibly popular belief: debt consolidation saves hottest and gives you one smaller payment.
Sounds good, right?
Sounds great, but the source is direct. It's a con. Why?
Right.
Because debt consolidation only addresses the symptom. The debt itself is just a symptom of overspending and undersaving. It doesn't fix the root cause.
Right.
And the internal stats from these consolidation firms, they're stark. A staggering 78% of consolidated credit card debt eventually grows back. Plus, those seemingly lower payments, they often come from just stretching out the loan term, meaning you ultimately pay more interest over a much longer time. It's often just a false sense of relief, not a real solution. That's a crucial distinction. Okay, what about the myth that loaning money to friends or relatives is actually a helpful act?
The truth, the author asserts pretty bluntly, is that such a relationship will be strained or destroyed. The only relationship that actually gets enhanced, he says, is that of master-servant. And that's not healthy for anyone involved.
Master-servant. Ouch!
Yeah. He shares that relatable anecdote about Junior borrowing money from his grandpa for a truck. Junior loses his job, sells the truck, and then, consumed by shame and guilt, just abandons the relationship, somehow rationalizes it's grandpa's fault. And the author says this sad scenario is played out hundreds of times, consistently straining, often destroying relationships. It's a painful lesson in valuing relationships over financial transactions.
That scenario sounds painfully familiar, I'm sure, to many listeners, which leads us right into the next one: co-signing a loan to help a friend or relative.
The truth here is even starker. Be ready to repay the loan, period. The bank wants a cosigner for a very specific reason. The primary borrower is high risk.
Right. They wouldn't ask if they didn't need one.
Exactly. A cosigner essentially overrides that sound financial judgment, usually based on emotion, not logic. And the consequences, they're severe. Your credit can be damaged, even if you're never directly contacted about late payments. You can be sued for any deficit after repossession. He even cites Proverbs 17.18. It's stupid to guarantee someone else's loan. And the painful stories just pile up. Kevin, whose co-signed car loan messed up his own mortgage application. Joe, stuck paying for a mobile home repo 10 years later. Brian, whose girlfriend literally vanished with the car he'd co-signed for. Broken hearts and broken wallets, that's the common devastating result.
Okay, shifting gears a bit to some truly predatory forms of debt. There's this myth that services like payday loans, rent-to-own places, title pawning, that they somehow help lower-income people get ahead.
This is just unequivocally debunked. He calls them rip-off examples of predatory lending, designed purely to take advantage of vulnerable people. They exist solely to benefit the owners, not to empower the desperate individuals seeking help. Payday loans, for instance. Interest rates often exceed 100%. Some documented cases soar over 650% APR.
650%.
Yeah. And rent-to-own agreements. They can carry effective interest rates averaging an astonishing 1,800%, meaning you could pay $1,800 for a washer-dryer that only costs $500 new. He explicitly points out these operations are almost exclusively located in poorer neighborhoods because rich people won't play. They understand these are just financial traps.
That's truly shocking math. What about that popular marketing slogan, 90 days, same as cash? It always sounds so appealing, so harmless.
The truth is firm. No, Virginia, 90 days is not the same as cash. The author argues this type of marketing is expertly crafted to encourage us to do that thing.
Yeah.
Buy things we don't need with money we don't have in order to impress people we don't like. He tells this chilling story of a couple who meticulously paid off a big screen TV early, specifically to avoid the back-charged interest, only to find themselves charged anyway because of some fraudulent salesperson's initials on the contract.
Oh, that's terrible.
Right. His counterexample is just simple. Buying a TV for cash. He got a discount. No hassle, no interest, no lies. It powerfully highlights the hidden costs and complications buried in these seemingly free deals.
Okay, and a major source of ongoing debt for so many households. The myth that car payments are just a way of life, something you'll basically always have.
This is identified as one of the dumbest things people do to destroy their chances of building wealth. Seriously, think about it. The average car payment is around $495, usually over 64 months. Now, just imagine investing that $495 every month, say from age 25 to 65, at a modest 12% average mutual fund return.
Okay.
You'd end up with over $5.5 million.
$5.5 million from just skipping car payments.
Yeah. So the alternative strategy he suggests is revolutionary for many. Save that $495 a month for just 10 months. Buy a reliable $5,000 car with cash. Then keep saving that payment amount and progressively trade up, maybe to a paid-for $15,000 car in about 30 months. And from that point on, never have a car payment again. He jokes that your broke friends' relatives will make fun of your used car, but adds that is a very good sign you are on the right track.
I can almost hear the snickers now, yeah. But those long-term numbers are just undeniable.
What about leasing a car? That's often pitched as a financially savvy move, right, for sophisticated people or for supposed tax advantages.
Consumer advocates and financial calculators consistently confirm leasing remains the most expensive way to operate a vehicle, period.
It is, at its core, just renting to own. The average effective interest rate on leases can be a staggering 14%. Plus, dealers make significantly more profit from leasing around $1,300 on average compared to maybe $82 from a cash sale or $775 from traditional financing.
Wow, big difference for the dealer.
Huge. A new car might lose, say, $12,000 in value over 3 years on a $22,000 lease. Your payment is essentially just covering that depreciation plus the dealer's substantial profit. And that whole idea of creating an unneeded business expense just for a tax write-off, it's simply bad math, he says. You're losing way more in depreciation and interest than you could possibly save in taxes.
So that seemingly sophisticated move is often just a really costly trap. Okay, related to new cars, there's the myth that you can afford one because they offered 0% interest.
Yeah, the 0% trap. While the interest rate might technically be zero, a new car loses a staggering 60% of its value in the first 4 years. So for a $28,000 car, that's about $17,000 just vanishing into thin air. He calculates that's like throwing $100 out the window every single week for 4 years.
Ouch, $100 a week.
Yeah, and the average millionaire. Turns out they typically drive a 2-year-old car with no payments. They completely avoid that massive immediate depreciation hit. Plus, even a slightly used car often still carries a good chunk of its original warranty.
Okay, this next one is particularly pervasive in our culture, I think. The belief that you absolutely need a credit card to build credit.
The source is pretty blunt here. You won't use credit with your Total Money Makeover, except maybe, possibly, for a home mortgage down the line. And you absolutely do not need a credit card for that. He controversially, but actually quite accurately, calls the FICO score an I love debt score.
I love debt score. Why?
Because think about how it's calculated. It's heavily influenced by your debt payment history. That's 35%, the levels of debt you carry, another 30%, and the types of debt you have, 10%. So he argues a 0 FICO score, which means you have no debt, is actually preferable to having a low score. And yes, you can absolutely get a conventional 15-year fixed-rate mortgage without a FICO score. You just need to find lenders who do actual underwriting.
Actual underwriting, meaning...
They look beyond just the score.
Yeah.
They evaluate your rental payment history, your career stability, your down payment size, other types of credit history you might have. The author himself operates with a 0 FICO score.
So that whole credit building narrative is effectively flipped completely on its head.
Okay. And what about that tempting idea, if you're disciplined, you pay off your credit card every single month, you get free use of someone else's money, plus maybe some rewards, points, or miles?
The source offers a pretty clear warning. When you play with snakes, eventually you're going to get bitten. Card track data shows that a significant majority, 60% of people, do not pay off their cards every month.
60% don't. Okay.
And studies consistently show people spend way more, like 47% more, when using credit instead of cash, because, as the author puts it, it hurts when you spend cash. There's a psychological difference. And as for those rewards, airline miles, hats, whatever, most often go unredeemed. Something like 90% of airline miles just expire.
90%? Wow.
Yeah. So the blunt truth, he keeps reiterating, broke people use credit cards, rich people don't.
No.
And to really hammer it home, an American Bankruptcy Institute study found that 69% of bankruptcy filers point to credit card debt as the primary cause. 69%, that's huge. Okay, another myth that parents desperately need to hear. The belief that giving your teenager a credit card helps them learn responsibility.
This is just unequivocally deemed an excellent way to destroy his or her financial future. The statistics are grim. Over 88% of graduating college seniors already carry credit card debt before they even land their first real job.
88% before they even have an income.
Crazy, right? Lenders aggressively market to teens, trying to establish brand loyalty, making that first credit card seem like some kind of rite of passage into adulthood. The source shares truly tragic examples of college students who took their own lives due to overwhelming credit card debt. And stories like Vince, 21 years old, burdened with $42,000 in debt on a meager $15,000 income. He also points out the insidious nature of kid branding like Cool Shopping Barbie, featuring a MasterCard logo clearly designed to influence future card choices from a young age.
So what's the alternative then? How do you teach kids?
The suggested alternative is practical. Teach children to work for commission, not just get an allowance. Then teach them to save, spend, and give using a hands-on cash envelope system. Real-world skills.
That really challenges a lot of ingrained parenting advice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the broader economic argument you sometimes hear? That if nobody used debt, our entire economy would just collapse.
The source's response is a firm, nope, it would prosper. He argues that a gradual shift away from debt would actually lead to increased saving, increased investing, and ultimately increased spending by debt-free individuals, creating a far more stable and robust economy in the long run. He challenges that common measure of consumer confidence, arguing it often just reflects impulsive overspending driven by, giddiness, rather than actual well-founded financial health.
Interesting take.
He also suggests that increased personal giving could help privatize many social problems, potentially lowering taxes and further building national wealth. It's a bold, really transformative challenge to conventional economic thinking. He basically advocates for a national total money makeover.
A completely different vision for economic health. All right, next myth. Borrowing more than your home's value, often framed as a wise way to restructure existing debt.
The stark truth. It just puts your home at risk, plain and simple. This strategy is frequently just used to move existing debt from one place, like credit cards, onto your house. The anecdote about Dan is particularly sobering. He borrowed $42,000 on a second mortgage, ended up owing $27,000 more than his home was actually worth. Then he lost his job, couldn't sell the underwater house, and was trapped making payments on a home he didn't really own anymore.
Wow, that's a nightmare scenario.
Totally. The author succinctly defines this kind of maneuver as creative financing, because effectively you're just too broke to buy a house in the first place if you need to do that.
Okay. And the ultimate financial reset button for many, filing for bankruptcy. The myth is that it's an easy way to just wipe the slate clean and start over.
The truth is that it's life-altering. It leaves deep wounds both to your psyche and definitely to your credit report. It's consistently ranked among the top 5 most negative life events, right up there with divorce or severe illness. The story of Larry and Susan Hickman is powerful here. They filed bankruptcy 3 times, feeling like frauds each time, until the Total Money Makeover finally gave them real hope and helped them actually pay off $26,000 in debt. It is absolutely not a painless reset button.
Okay, what about the seemingly simple act of using cash? There's sometimes a myth that cash is dangerous, you might get robbed.
The counterargument is simple. Consistently using cash leads to spending less, period. There's a physical hurt, a tangible feeling that happens when you physically hand over money. It makes you far more conscious and intentional about your spending decisions.
You feel it more.
Exactly. It also gives you immediate control. For example, if your designated food envelope is running low, you're forced to get creative with leftovers rather than just impulse buying more groceries. It creates this direct, tangible connection to your spending habits.
Another common worry. The myth that you just can't afford insurance.
The source flips that right around. He asserts that some types of insurance are so crucial you simply can't afford not to have them. The essential types. Auto and homeowners, definitely, but maybe with higher deductibles to save on the premiums. Term life insurance specifically 10 times your income, and absolutely not a cash value policy that tries to mix insurance with poor savings returns.
Okay.
Long-term disability insurance is huge. You are statistically 12 times more likely to become disabled than to die before age 65.
12 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Health insurance, of course, especially a high-deductible plan paired with a health savings account, or HSA, which offers unique tax advantages for medical savings. And long-term care insurance, especially if you're over 60, to protect your nest egg from potentially devastating nursing home costs down the road. The story of Steve and Sandy powerfully illustrates this. Their term life and HSA policy covered over $100,000 for inoperable brain cancer treatment. He also warns that many people make big mistakes with complex cash value life insurance policies, criticizing them for horrible returns, high fees, and very slow cash value buildup.
So it's really about having the right insurance, chosen strategically, not just any insurance.
Yeah.
How about that ever-present dream of getting rich quick? The myth that playing the lottery or gambling will somehow make you wealthy.
This is bluntly called a tax on the poor and people who can't do math.
Ooh.
Studies consistently show that zip codes with lower average incomes spend 4 times more on lottery tickets than wealthier zip codes. It just offers this cruel, false hope.
4 times more.
Yeah. Wealth, the source emphasizes again and again, is built through consistent energy, thrift, and diligence, not luck. And just to put it in perspective, your odds of winning a major lottery are something like 1 in 120 million. You are statistically 400 times more likely to be struck by lightning.
Okay, lightning strike it is then. Not really. That certainly puts it into perspective. Another housing-related myth, that mobile homes, or trailers, help you own a home instead of just renting.
The truth is that trailers go down in value rapidly. It makes building wealth a significant challenge compared to, say, renting and saving the difference. For instance, a $25,000 double-wide could easily be worth as little as $8,000 in just 5 years. Meanwhile, you might still owe $22,000 on the loan. He describes it as financially similar to living in your new car, just a rapidly depreciating asset.
Got it. And what about prepaid burial plans? Are those a wise financial move?
Pre-planning the details of a funeral. Yes, that's wise. But prepaying for it, generally unwise, according to the source. He illustrates it clearly. If you were to invest, say, $3,500 in a decent growth stock mutual fund earning 12% from age 39 to 78, that investment could grow to over $368,500.
$368,000.
Yeah, which is far, far more than needed for a funeral. It demonstrates that your money is almost always better off growing for you rather than being tied up years in advance in a prepaid plan.
Makes sense. Okay, many people, when they feel desperate, turn to debt management companies, like the ones that used to be called AmeriDebt. The myth is that these companies will somehow save you.
The truth is, you may get out of debt, but only with your credit trashed. Mortgage underwriting, for instance, will often treat participation in one of those programs very similarly to having filed a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The source argues strongly that your credit can and will clean itself over time simply by consistently living debt-free and paying cash for things. There's really no magical shortcut or quick fix that doesn't have negative consequences.
Okay, here's one that affects many people after a difficult life event, like a divorce. My divorce decree says my ex-spouse has to pay that debt, so I'm off the hook.
This is a harsh but absolutely necessary reality check. Divorce decrees do not have the power to take your name off credit cards and mortgages. So if your ex-spouse doesn't pay, guess what? Be ready to. You still legally owe the debt.
Ouch. Still legally responsible.
Yep. Lenders will report bad credit on both names and can legally sue all parties who were originally on the loan. For a complete clean break, the source stresses all joint debts must be refinanced solely into one person's name, or assets must be sold to completely cover them. Anything less leaves you financially exposed and vulnerable.
That's critical information for anyone going through that. And finally, when you're in deep financial trouble, you inevitably end up dealing with debt collectors. There's that myth. Wow, that collector was actually really helpful. I think he really likes me.
The truth is unwavering and needs to be heard. Collectors are not your friends, period. Their understanding or their apparent friendliness. It's a calculated tactic. It's designed purely to get you to pay them. Conversely, they can also be incredibly mean and nasty if they think that will work better.
It's just a tactic.
Absolutely. Any deal or settlement you agree to must be put in writing before you send them a single penny. And critically, never ever give them electronic access to your checking account or send post-dated checks. If you grant them that power, the author warns, they will absolutely abuse it. Drain your account.
Wow. Okay, we've spent a good chunk of time really dismantling these ingrained myths, revealing how many seemingly harmless financial ideas actually keep us trapped. But the author doesn't just tear things down, he builds a clear path up. It's clear that genuine financial health isn't about complexity, it's about disciplined behavior. So now, let's turn to the actionable solution the source provides, the famous 7 baby steps to financial fitness. This philosophy is strikingly simple, isn't it? Inspired by that movie, What About Bob? The core idea being, you can get anywhere if you simply go one step at a time.
It's truly a philosophy of incremental progress, like, eating an elephant one bite at a time, or starting a fitness program by just walking before you even think about running a marathon. The power of focus is incredibly key here. If you try to tackle everything at once, so putting a little towards your 401k, making a tiny extra payment on the house, throwing a few bucks extra at the credit card, you just dilute your efforts.
Right, spreads you too thin.
Exactly. Progress becomes painfully slow, and that inevitably leads to discouragement. You lose steam. But by focusing intently on one step at a time, you create visible progress. You get those crucial little wins, those attaboys, that really fuel your motivation and keep you going.
And the power of priority is just as important, right? These steps are designed to build on each other, and they must be done in their specific order.
Absolutely critical. If you jump ahead or do them out of sequence, it can lead to deep frustration or worse, significant financial setbacks. Like, for example, cashing out your retirement account to cover an emergency. That's explicitly a bad move according to this plan. This whole process demands patience. It requires a conscious resistance to that temptation to rush ahead or skip steps, even if one area, like college savings, feels more immediately urgent.
Okay, patience and order. Got it.
That's right. So let's dive into baby step 1. Save $1,000 cash as a starter emergency fund.
This is your initial rainy day fund, your little umbrella.
Yeah.
Because, as the source wisely says, it is going to rain financially at some point for everyone. Money Magazine actually reports that a startling 78% of people will experience some kind of major negative event in any given 10-year period. Could be a job loss, an unexpected pregnancy, major car trouble, a death in the family. Life happens.
And the profound purpose of this initial $1,000 is specifically to catch the small emergencies, the little things that inevitably pop up, preventing them from completely derailing your entire makeover right at the start. The author actually learned this the hard way. He used to start people with debt reduction first, but found they'd abandon the whole plan if some minor emergency hit, forcing them right back into debt.
Ah, okay. So the $1,000 prevents that backtrack.
Exactly. Using debt, again, just leads to this demoralizing loss of momentum, that feeling of failure. So this $1,000 acts as your initial buffer, protecting your progress and your motivation.
So this $1,000 fund comes with some pretty strict rules, right? It's for emergencies only.
Only emergencies, not for impulse buys, not for vacations, and definitely not for poor planning Christmas, he explicitly points out. Comes every year. It's not an emergency. And a vital rule. If you do have to use any of it, you must replenish it immediately. Get back to $1,000 before moving on to the next step.
Okay. And where should you keep it?
You need to hide it from easy impulse spending. Keep it in a standard bank savings account, but definitely not linked as overdraft protection, because that just makes it too easy to spend accidentally. Its primary purpose is safety and accessibility, not earning interest. You're not trying to grow this money, just have it ready. The source also introduces this fascinating observation he calls Murphy repellent.
Murphy repellent. I like that.
Yeah. He notes that Problems, Murphy's Law situations, seem to occur less frequently when people actually have an emergency fund in place, while families who are constantly broke often seem to just attract old Murphy. So a fully funded emergency fund, he suggests, somehow acts as Murphy repellent, keeps those little disasters at bay.
I love that image. And the impact of just this first step, just getting that $1,000 saved, can be surprisingly profound, can't it?
Huge. He shares the example of Lily, a single mom really struggling with what he calls survival debt. She gained this immediate sense of hope, power, and control just by saving her first $500. It utterly transformed her outlook on money, her sense of agency. Just that small buffer made a world of difference.
Amazing. Okay, so once that $1,000 starter fund is securely in place, you move powerfully into baby step 2. Use the debt snowball to become debt-free, except for your home. This step is about clearly identifying the real financial enemy, which the source says is payments, having payments hanging over you.
Exactly. The ultimate key to building wealth, he asserts, is having absolutely no payments whatsoever, other than maybe your mortgage for a time.
Now, the debt snowball method itself is famously counterintuitive for a lot of people, especially those focused purely on interest rates. But its power lies in psychology, right?
Precisely. First, you list all your debts, every single one, except your home mortgage, but you list them from the smallest payoff balance to the largest, regardless of the interest rate.
Smallest balance first, not highest interest rate. Why that specific order?
Because, he explains, quickly paying off those small debts gives you rapid psychological wins. It creates intense momentum, keeps your motivation sky high. You see progress fast.
Okay, those quick victories.
Then you commit to paying only the minimum payments on all debts except that smallest one. And every single found dollar money you free up by cutting expenses, selling stuff you don't need, working extra hours, gets thrown relentlessly at that smallest debt until it is completely gone, obliterated.
Got it. Attack the smallest one first.
Right. Once that first smallest debt is paid off, the money you were paying on it, plus any additional funds you've freed up, then snowballs onto the next smallest debt on your list. This creates this accelerating avalanche effect. The amount you're applying to each subsequent debt grows larger and larger, dramatically speeding up your path to total debt freedom.
That sounds like it requires incredible drive and focus. The source calls this achieving gazelle intensity.
Yes, it's such a vivid metaphor, drawn from Proverbs 6, which talks about delivering yourself like the bird from the hand of the fowler and the gazelle from the hand of the hunter. It means outmaneuvering debt with extreme focus, profound sacrifice, and this urgent, almost desperate intensity, like a gazelle sprinting away from a predator.
So what does that look like in practical terms? What actions embody that intensity?
It means drawing a clear line in the sand, stop all new borrowing immediately. Physically cutting up all your credit cards, he humorously calls it a plastectomy.
Plastectomy.
Selling debt-ridden items, like maybe swapping that new Jeep Liberty you have a huge payment on for a reliable used car you can pay cash for. Selling other possessions you don't truly need.
Right.
And actively working extra hours or even taking on second jobs. He shares the powerful example of Shelley Hogenhout, who worked 10 extra hours cleaning resort rooms every weekend, specifically to plow that money onto her $35,000 debt and get rid of it faster.
That's truly next-level dedication. And this leads to a recommendation that can be quite controversial for some, temporarily stopping retirement contributions.
Yeah, this one gets debated. But for those who are radically gazelle intense, really committed to getting out of debt fast, the source does recommend temporarily pausing 401k contributions, even if you're getting a company match.
Even the match. Wow, why?
The rationale is that the speed of achieving complete debt freedom, except the home, is considered more powerful in the long run. It allows you to return to heavy investing much, much sooner, but now without the crushing weight of payments holding you back. Now, there can be an exception. Someone in a very deep hole, like the example of Tammy, who had $15,000 in credit card debt on just a $24,000 income. In a case like that, maybe continuing to get the employer match could still be warranted. But for most, the pause is recommended for speed.
So it's a calculated short-term but highly impactful sacrifice for a profound long-term gain.
Yeah.
What happens if someone needs to use their $1,000 starter emergency fund during this debt snowball phase, baby step 2?
Simple rule. If that happens, you immediately pause the debt snowball. You go right back to baby step 1 and focus only on replenishing that $1,000 fund. Only once it's full again do you resume the snowball where you left off. This crucial rule prevents you from falling back into the old habit of using debt for emergencies and killing all your hard-won momentum.
Got it. Pause, refill, then resume. And the typical timeline for getting completely debt-free, except the house, using this gazelle intensity.
It's remarkably fast for most people. The average person achieves this in about 18 months.
18 months. That's an astonishingly rapid transformation for people who might have been struggling for years.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the impact of completing this step, it's immense. It eliminates so many financial arguments in relationships. It fosters this profound sense of contentment because you're not constantly chasing payments. And it gives you an incredible feeling of power and control over your money, maybe for the first time ever. He shares the example of David and Taylor Jarrett paid off $10,000 in debt on just a $30,000 income.
Yeah.
Now they use a cash envelope system effectively and communicate way better about their finances. It changes everything.
Incredible. Okay, so once you are entirely debt-free, with the glorious exception of your home mortgage, you transition to baby step 3. Finish the emergency fund.
Right. This is where you build that truly robust safety net.
So this means having a solid 3 to 6 months of your actual living expenses saved up entirely in cash, not income, right? But what it actually costs you to live each month.
Exactly. Your expenses. And after tackling debt with such intense focus in baby step 2, this step often comes relatively quickly for people, especially now that ideally you only have one payment left your mortgage.
So what's the typical dollar range for this fully funded emergency fund?
It really depends on your lifestyle and monthly expenses, but it typically ranges anywhere from $5,000 up to maybe $25,000 or even more for some families. For instance, a family living on $3,000 a month would aim for a minimum of $10,000, maybe up to $18,000. It's core purpose. To cover the major unexpected life events, think job loss, a significant medical deductible you have to meet, maybe your car's engine blows up. This substantial fund is your impenetrable buffer between you and life's inevitable curveballs. It's specifically designed to prevent you ever having to go back into debt again.
Okay, so what exactly qualifies as an emergency for dipping into this big fund? The author seems quite strict about this definition.
He is, and for good reason. An emergency has to be truly unforeseen, have a major financial impact, and require immediate coverage. Think medical deductibles after an accident, covering your living expenses during a period of job loss, unexpected major medical bills, or maybe essential car repairs needed to get you to work. It is emphatically not for discretionary wants, not for starting a business, not for buying a new car or couch just because you want one, not for vacations, prom dresses, or even planned college tuition. Those need separate savings goals.
So no rationalizing wants into needs.
Exactly. The author and his wife even model this decision-making process. They emphasize that they discuss it, they agree, they sleep on it overnight, they even pray about any decision to use their emergency fund just to ensure it's a genuine emergency and not just them rationalizing a desire.
That's serious discipline. The fund also has to be highly liquid, right? Easily accessible.
Absolutely critical. It must be easy to get to without facing any penalties. Standard savings accounts are great, maybe some quick-release CDs if they exist. But things like growth stock mutual funds or traditional CDs with early withdrawal penalties, those are explicitly bad choices for this money because you might hesitate to pull the money out if the market is down or if you lose money to penalties, which completely defeats the purpose of an emergency fund. Remember, this fund isn't for investing or growth. Its sole purpose is safety and providing profound peace of mind.
Right, safety and peace. And that Murphy repellent concept comes back here too, doesn't it?
It does, but on a bigger scale. With a fully funded emergency fund, those problems that would have been catastrophic before, they become mere inconveniences rather than huge life-altering events. He shares this stark contrast. George and Sally have a car accident, but their emergency fund easily covers the deductible. It's stressful but manageable. Kim, without the fund, has a similar wreck, and it causes immense financial stress, relationship problems, everything spirals. It just powerfully illustrates how financial fitness radically reduces life's stress levels.
That's a truly powerful transformation in how you experience life's bumps. And you mentioned earlier there's an interesting observation about gender dynamics related to this step.
Yeah, it's an interesting point he makes. He suggests men are often more task-oriented with money, focused on hitting specific financial goals. While women, stereotypically perhaps, but often true, he finds, are typically more security-based. They value the deep peace of mind that comes from knowing there's a safety net. So this emergency fund, with its substantial cash balance, provides immense peace of mind, especially for women. It often calms what the author humorously calls a spasmodic security gland. That underlying anxiety that can impact emotions, concentration, even the intimacy in a relationship.
The spasmodic security gland.
His pragmatic advice to men is clear. Even if you don't fully get the deep emotional value of the emergency fund, get one anyway. because of the profound peace it brings to your partner and your relationship. As the old saying goes, happy wife, happy life.
Wise words. It sounds like a true gift of security you give your family. Now, for those who have that strong itch to buy a home, there's a kind of baby step 3B.
Yes, exactly. Once your full 3 to 6 month emergency fund is complete, step 3, if the desire to buy a home is really strong, the next priority is to save specifically for a large down payment. You do this after step 3, but before moving on to step 4, retirement investing. He really reinforces definition here. Creative financing just means you're too broke to buy a house. So paying cash outright or having a very substantial down payment, like 20% or more, is presented as the only truly financially wise path to homeownership in this plan.
Okay, so get fully funded, then save the down payment if homeownership is the immediate next goal. Makes sense. All right, once you're debt-free, except maybe the house, and you have that robust, fully funded emergency fund sitting there, you're finally ready for the wealth-building phase. Baby step 4. Invest 15% of your income in retirement.
This is a huge milestone, a massive turning point. With potentially only one payment left to your mortgage, it becomes significantly easier to start investing heavily for the future. The rule is straightforward. Consistently invest 15% of your before-tax gross income every single year. And that specific 15% number, it's carefully chosen. It's generally enough to ensure real dignity in your golden years, but it still leaves ample room in your budget for other important goals later, like saving for kids' college and paying off your house early.
15% of gross income. And where should that money be invested? What are the recommended investment vehicles in this step?
You prioritize it like this. First, contribute enough to your employer's plan, like a 401k or 403b, to get the full employer match. That's free money. You don't leave that on the table.
Okay, match first?
Match first. Then you fully fund Roth IRAs for yourself and your spouse, if applicable, up to the annual contribution limit. The big advantage of the Roth is that the growth and qualified withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. Huge benefit.
Tax-free growth. Got it.
Finally, if you still haven't reached your 15% total investment goal after maxing out the match in the Roths, you go back and contribute more to your traditional 401ks, 403bs, maybe 457s, or SEF IRAs if you're self-employed, until you hit that 15% target for the year.
Okay, that's a clear hierarchy. What kind of returns should someone realistically expect using this strategy? He doesn't recommend anything too crazy, right?
No, he recommends sticking with well-established, diversified options, specifically good growth stock-type mutual funds. He often points to the long-term historical averages of broad market indexes like the S&P 500, which has averaged somewhere around 11.67% per year for over 80 years, and that includes navigating major market downturns like 2008. And he offers a simple definition of financial security in retirement, being able to comfortably live off 8% of your total nest egg each year. That assumes maybe a 12% average return, allowing 4% for inflation so your principal doesn't deplete. So using that math, for example, if you aim to live on $40,000 a year in retirement, you'd need a nest egg of about $500,000.
Okay, that gives a clear target. And this is where the magic, or maybe just the math, of compound interest really starts to kick in powerfully, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely astounding. The numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
Consider a hypothetical 27-year-old couple earning an average income, say around $50,000.
Yeah.
If they consistently invest just $625 per month, which is 15% of that $50 gross income into Roth IRAs, even if they never get another raise in their entire careers, by age 70, they could accumulate over $7.5 million. Tax-free?
$7.5 million tax-free.
Free. It just highlights the incredible, almost unbelievable power of consistent, disciplined investing over long periods. And contrast that with the shocking reality he often cites. 97 out of 100 people age 65 can't even write a $600 check for an emergency. It just shows what's possible versus what typically happens.
That is a stark contrast. And the source has a very clear, some might even say controversial, stance on relying on Social Security for retirement.
His advice is unequivocal. Do not rely on it. He states it very directly. The mathematics of that system spell doom. Don't count on it being there for you in the same way it was for previous generations. His core message is blunt. It is your personal responsibility to take care of your own retirement. Full stop, however. The message is also one of profound hope. He stresses it's truly never too late to start. He cites inspiring examples like George Burns winning his first Oscar at 80 or Colonel Sanders starting KFC at 65.
Right.
Emphasizing that your financial past is just that, the past. You can always start making better choices right where you are right now.
That's empowering. Okay, so after securing your own future retirement, baby step 5 shifts the focus to saving for college for your children. Now, many people feel immense anxiety about this particular step, maybe even wanting to jump here sooner, but the instruction is very clear. Wait until the earlier steps are complete. Why is that specific order so crucial?
It's vital. Trying to save for college while you're still drowning in debt or don't have your own fully funded emergency fund in place. It almost invariably leads to raiding that college fund when other financial pressures inevitably pop up. You undermine your own efforts. The source also emphasizes understanding the true core purpose of a college education first. It's fundamentally about gaining knowledge, about learning. It is not a guaranteed ticket to a job, automatic success, or instant wealth. He directly challenges those common myths that just having a degree ensures those outcomes, noting, sadly, that many college-educated individuals today are both broke and unemployed.
So temper expectations about what a degree automatically delivers. Given that perspective, what are the core rules or principles for funding a college education according to this plan?
The rules are incredibly direct. Rule #1, pay cash. Rule #2, if you have the cash for the scholarship, go. That's it.
Pay cash, no loans.
Student loans are explicitly off limits in this plan. The author points out, interestingly, that a significant chunk of student loan money isn't even used for tuition. It often goes towards funding an off-campus standard of living, sometimes an extra $5,000 per year, just so students can live and eat away from campus, which might not be necessary.
Okay, so pay cash. But what if a family feels like they're short on time or they haven't managed to save much? Are there creative funding strategies presented beyond just traditional savings accounts?
Absolutely. The source offers a whole range of practical, creative solutions. Some are common sense. Choosing more affordable schools, maybe starting a community college, living on campus, eating the cafeteria food instead of eating out all the time. Crucially, he advises having the children work while they're in school because, as he states simply, work is good for them. Builds character, teaches responsibility.
Work is good for them.
He also suggests exploring companies that offer tuition assistance programs for their employees, or even flipping the concept, finding companies willing to pay students for working part-time while they study. Work-study programs, like the famous UPS example, where they help pay tuition for employees working maybe 20 hours a week, are highlighted as excellent options. Military service, too, either full-time or National Guard, can often fully cover tuition and books.
What about some of the more ambitious, maybe less conventional options for funding college?
For the truly driven, he mentions things like high rejection but potentially high-paying summer sales jobs. He knows young people who've made $40,000 in a single summer doing that, paying for school themselves. There are also underserved areas programs where government agencies might pay for your schooling or repay your loans if you commit to working in specific rural or inner-city areas after graduation, often in fields like law, medicine, or nursing. But perhaps his favorite method, alongside consistent saving in tax-advantaged accounts, is the aggressive pursuit of scholarships.
Scholarships, right. Free money.
Exactly. Hundreds of millions of dollars in scholarships are available every year, often from local community clubs, nonprofits, based on essays or interests, not just grades or sports. And a surprising number often go completely unclaimed because people just don't apply. He shares that inspiring story of Denise, a listener who systematically applied for 1,000 different scholarships.
1,000.
1,000. She was awarded 30 of them, totaling $38,000. Enough to go to school entirely for free. It takes work, but it's possible. The ultimate goal of this step, ensuring a legacy of debt is not passed down your family tree. Breaking that cycle.
That's incredibly empowering. Okay, moving on to the home stretch now. Baby step 6, pay off your home mortgage early. This step is all about achieving that ultimate financial peace, that feeling of true ownership, and of course saving potentially tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest payments over the life of the loan.
And this step directly tackles another major financial myth head on, that pervasive idea that you should keep your mortgage purely for the tax deduction.
Right? You hear that all the time. It's good debt because of the tax break.
The truth, the source passionately explains, is just bad math. Trading, say, $10,000 in interest you pay to the bank just so you can save maybe $3,000 in taxes. If you're in the 30% tax bracket, it's completely illogical. You're still $7,000 poorer. He even humorously but pointedly makes this offer. He'll personally pay $3,000 of taxes for anyone who's willing to send him $10,000 in interest, just to highlight the absurdity.
Huh. That's a very direct way to put it. Okay, and another common belief related to mortgages, borrowing against your home equity or continually refinancing to take cash out so you can invest it elsewhere and supposedly earn a higher return.
The truth here is equally stark, according to the source. You really don't make anything when the smoke clears. Well, yes, theoretically, investment vehicles like mutual funds might historically average 12%, and your mortgage might be at, say, 8%. That theoretical 4% spread often doesn't actually materialize in real life. Why? Because life inevitably intervenes. Sick children, bad transmissions, prom dresses, as he puts it, unexpected expenses pop up, leading people to miss making those crucial extra payments on the mortgage needed to make the strategy work.
Right, the discipline often wavers.
Exactly. He asserts that a staggering 97.3% of people don't systematically pay extra on their mortgage consistently enough to make this arbitrage strategy reliable. Plus, doing this adds significant unnecessary risk to your most valuable asset, your home. You're leveraging your house for potential investment gains, which is inherently risky.
Okay, so avoid leveraging the house. What about the length of the mortgage itself? Is a 15-year term really that much better than the standard 30-year?
The choice between a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage is presented as absolutely critical for wealth building. A 15-year mortgage, even though it means a higher monthly payment, maybe an extra $550 per month on a $225,000 loan at 7%, for example, saves you nearly $150,000 in total interest payments and shaves 15 years off your debt sentence compared to the 30-year option.
$150,000 saved.
Oh.
That's massive.
It's huge. A 15-year mortgage essentially automates smart moves.
Yeah.
It forces you into a disciplined payoff schedule and dramatically accelerates your path to true homeownership.
And what about refinancing your existing mortgage? When does that make sense according to this plan?
Only if two conditions are met. First, it genuinely saves you significant interest over the life of the loan. And second, you commit to staying in that home longer than the number of months it takes to break even on the closing costs involved in the refinances. And crucially, he advises steering clear of paying points or origination fees, which are essentially just prepaid interest you pay up front. These fees typically take an average of 10 years to recoup through lower payments, but the average mortgage is refinanced or the house is sold within just 3 to 5 years, so you often lose money paying points. He instructs listeners to always ask their lender for a par quote that means 0 points and 0 origination fees.
Good tip. Now, he's also extremely critical of certain types of mortgages, specifically adjustable rate mortgages, or IRMs, and balloon mortgages.
His warning is blunt, maybe even scary. You will be moving when they foreclose. ARMs fundamentally transfer the interest rate risk from the lender to you, the consumer. Almost all ARMs start with a teaser interest rate that's below the actual market margin, which practically guarantees your payment will increase down the road unless market rates absolutely plummet. Balloon mortgages, even worse. The entire principal balance becomes due in a very short period, maybe 3 to 5 years. They create immense risk nightmares for homeowners. Wise financial people, he asserts again, systematically move away from risk, not towards it. These products add risk.
Okay. Avoid ARMs and balloons. What about the ultimate dream for some? Paying cash for a home. Is that actually realistic for average people?
He insists it is very possible, even on average incomes, but it requires intense saving and serious sacrifice. He shares that inspiring example of Luke and his wife. On a combined $80,000 household income, they managed to save an astonishing $50,000 per year for 3 years.
Saving $50K on an $80K income?
Extreme frugality, intense focus. They used that $150,000 saved to pay cash for their first home by the time they were just 26 years old. Sure, their friends and relatives might have teased them for their frugal lifestyle during those years, but they achieved profound and true financial freedom, owning their home outright far, far earlier than almost anyone else.
That is incredible discipline. And the emotional culmination of this monumental step, paying off the house, is what he calls the barefoot mortgage burning party.
Yes. It's such a vivid, tangible image of achieving true homeownership and complete financial freedom. He shares that powerful anecdote of Al and her husband. They paid off $118,000 in debt, including their $85,000 mortgage, in just 6 years on a $70,000 income. She literally brought a clump of fescue grass from her backyard to the author's radio show.
Grass.
And she exclaimed, "The grass really does feel different under my bare feet in the backyard now that there is no mortgage and we are debt-free." It just perfectly embodies that tangible, emotional, psychological liberation of being truly, completely debt-free, owning your home free and clear.
That image gives me chills. What a feeling that must be. And that incredible triumph leads us finally to the pinnacle, the ultimate goal. Baby step 7, build wealth like crazy and give.
Reaching this milestone is huge. It means you are truly in the top 2% of Americans, financially speaking. You are now totally debt-free. No house payment, no car payment, no credit cards, no student loans, nothing.
Your income now transforms into your single most powerful wealth-building tool. And at this stage, your money really starts to work harder than you do. This is the moment where that focused gazelle intensity you practiced earlier has reached critical mass, and your money truly takes on a life of its own through compounding. You are officially financially secure when you can comfortably live off that 8% withdrawal rate from your nest egg each year. Your money, unlike you, doesn't get sick, doesn't get pregnant, and it works for you 24/7.
So once you're at this incredible stage with all that financial muscle and freedom, what does the author suggest you actually do with your money?
He identifies 3 fundamentally good and equally important uses for money at this stage. Have fun, invest more, and give generously. He strongly suggests you should be doing some of all 3, actually starting way back in baby step 1, like finding inexpensive fun, giving your time when you don't have money, but really escalating your efforts in all 3 areas now as your wealth continues to grow rapidly.
Okay, have fun, invest, give. Let's start with the fun aspect. Sounds good after all that sacrifice.
Absolutely. After potentially years of intense discipline and saying no to yourself, the kid in us, as he puts it, finally gets some well-deserved reward. You can now genuinely afford some luxury items, maybe that $30,000 watch you always wanted, a brand new $50,000 car paid for with cash, maybe even upgrading to a $700,000 dream home, again, paid for wisely. But crucially, you can afford them when they represent a small percentage of your overall net wealth. He uses the example of Michael, a millionaire listener making $650,000 a year with $20 million already invested. Yeah, he can easily afford to buy a $20,000 Harley Davidson without blinking. It's about responsible enjoyment now, not reckless status spending like before.
Right, enjoying the fruits of your labor responsibly. And the second use, invest. Keep building that wealth.
Exactly. This is how serious long-term wealth is built and, in a way, how you keep score of your progress. The advice here is actually to keep your investing strategies relatively simple, especially until you might accumulate, say, over $10 million in net worth. Avoid overly complex, speculative, or trendy ventures. Stick to proven principles. And the core principle here is profound and critical. Always manage your own money.
Manage your own money, even with millions.
Yes. While you should absolutely surround yourself strategically with a trusted team of experts, maybe a good estate planning attorney, a sharp CPA, a knowledgeable insurance professional, a fee-based investment pro, maybe a great realtor, you always remain the decision maker. You're the CEO of your finances.
Yeah.
He strongly cautions against handing complete control over to money managers, citing too many tragic examples of how celebrities and professional athletes have lost entire fortunes that way by trusting the wrong people implicitly. Stay in control.
Good advice. And finally, the third and perhaps the most fulfilling use of money at this stage, give-e.
This is beautifully described as where the most mature part of who you are meets the kid inside who wants to make a real difference in the world. He says it's possibly the most fun you will ever have with money. Mentally and spiritually healthy, wealthy people, he observes from his experience, genuinely love giving. They find deep joy in it. Money, he emphasizes, gives power to good intentions. He illustrates this powerfully with the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Samaritan could actually act on his compassionate intentions because he had the money to pay for the injured man's lodging and care. Good intentions need resources to become actions.
And there are some wonderful, really heartwarming stories shared in the source to emphasize the profound impact and joy of giving, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Like the friend who anonymously buys 75 brand new bicycles every single Christmas for an inner city ministry, just imagining the kids' faces. Or the Seeds of Kindness project, where listeners are encouraged to discreetly give away $100 bills to strangers who look like they need it, creating these incredible moments of unexpected grace. Larry Stewart, who became famously known as the Secret Santa in Kansas City, gave away over $1.3 million over decades, mostly in small bills during the holidays, simply because, as he put it, it was the most fun he could possibly have with money.
Wow. Secret Santa.
Giving, the source concludes, just feels right. It connects us to something bigger than ourselves, and it could ultimately be far more fulfilling and bring more lasting joy than just accumulating more stuff. He shares the example of Ron and Teresa Brewer, who quietly stepped in to pay for their daughter's best friend's private school tuition after the friend's father suddenly died, ensuring the child could remain with her friends and maintain some stability during an incredibly traumatic time. That's the power of generosity.
It's about using wealth for impact. And it's about breaking free from what the author calls the monkey trap, isn't it? that final illustration.
Exactly. He recounts that old anecdote about how hunters supposedly trap monkeys. They put nuts inside a bottle with a narrow neck. The monkey reaches in, grabs the nuts, makes a fist, but then can't pull its fist out because it's unwilling to just drop the nuts. Greed. Or just the stubborn unwillingness to let go, whether it's letting go of debt, letting go of harmful financial habits, or even being unwilling to let go of money through generosity, can trap individuals just as powerfully as that monkey is trapped by its own fistful of nuts. This final step, baby step 7, is also where that spousal collaboration really flourishes. Partners learn to let each other function best in the areas they naturally excel at. Maybe the saver leans towards managing the investments, while the natural spender makes sure they actually have some fun along the way, and hopefully both find deep shared joy in the act of giving together.
What an incredible journey mapped out here. From confronting that initial pain of debt and denial, all the way through the steps, to reaching this pinnacle of financial freedom and truly purposeful living, the Total Money Makeover really outlines a powerful, life-altering transformation. It's clearly much more than just about money. It's a life makeover, demanding that you squarely face that man or woman in the mirror.
Absolutely. This whole plan consistently underscores that core truth. Personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge. Getting the behavior right is the key. And the outcome isn't just about achieving financial solvency. It's about living a more well-rounded, more mature life, largely free from that crushing weight of money worries, which then allows you to live with greater purpose, greater peace, and greater generosity.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we really encourage you, the listener, to reflect honestly on where you are right now, on your own financial journey. There's immense hope in knowing that a proven step-by-step path exists, one that millions have successfully walked. The call to action is clear and hopefully empowering. Take that first step, or maybe the next one if you're already on the path. Just lace up your shoes of resolve, as the author puts it.
And remember this powerful truth he emphasizes.
Yeah.
You are precisely where you are right now financially, as a direct sum total of the decisions you've made up to this point. If you truly want to be in a different place financially, you must first believe differently, and then crucially, you must do things differently, act differently. The change will undoubtedly be painful at times. Sacrifice isn't easy, but the profound result, freedom, peace, control, will be immeasurably worth it. So we leave you with this to reflect on. What's your next baby step after hearing this deep dive?